Welcome. Thanks for joining me. So, with Halloween around the corner, I figured we'd do a darker subject. And to me, these catacombs have everything to do with human farming and cannibalism. So, the catacombs of Paris is about as suspicious as it gets. And it's some 200 miles of labyrinth tunnels with over 6 million skeletons. There's almost an equal number of quarries and tunnel networks that stretch far beyond the boundaries of the city, and it's said that one could spend their whole lifetime wandering without so much as scratching the surface. Now, despite the vast length of a tunneled underground world, only a small section of it is open to the public. Of course, right? So this tiny portion, which is actually only under a mile, is known as the Denfert Rochereau Ossuary. Excuse me if I butchered that, but it's more popularly known as the Catacombs, and it's become one of the top tourist attractions in Paris. So we can immediately assume that the truth behind these catacombs are much darker than the official story. And while people do travel the catacombs illegally, much of it has been sealed off. Now, of course, they're saying it's for public safety and weird, but basically evidence is being deliberately filled up and sealed with concrete. Essentially, no one needs to go down there and see what's going on. So that in itself is very telling to me. Alright guys, so this is going to get good because I not only have my theories on this place, but to be honest, I think it's probably one of the most plausible because I want to make it clear right now, when we look at these ossuaries, something about them just doesn't sit right with me. The way they arrange these bones in a decorative manner is spooky. Like, humans don't do this. We don't decorate rooms with grandma's bones. So these ossuaries have some type of ritualistic aspect beyond mere burial. And I suppose there is some minimal number of tribes or groups around the world that don't bury or preserve their dead. However, I don't think it's the majority. Like, we should not be seeing these worldwide like we do. So not only did these people not keep the bodies in one piece, they dismembered them, they mixed them up, and it goes against all old beliefs that we should mummify, preserve, bury, or just pay some type of respect to the dead in preparation for their return or afterlife. I imagine that places like these would be Marina Abramovich's equivalent to Disneyland. All jokes aside, it's obvious that all these deaths were happening in the same time frame, some type of mass extinction. And if you pay attention to the bones, it looks like the cartilage has been wiped clean on just about all of them. Also note that many of the skulls have a hole in the same location, denoting some type of violent death. We see skulls, we see femurs, we see bones of arms and legs, but where's the rest? You don't see chest bones, sternum, pelvis, scapula. These aren't small, and this is practically the case in just about all the catacombs. So I'm going to tell you right now, unless you've been living under a rock or under Rockefeller-induced programming, then you know that we have accounts of giants worldwide, every single culture, and they were reportedly cannibals in many of these ancient tales, cultures, tribes. Then we have the Book of Enoch, which states these giants devoured all the labor of men until it became impossible to feed them. This gives an entirely different perspective to all those scattered piles we see throughout the illegal sections of the catacombs. So, were all these victims from cannibalistic giants? I've actually got some compelling information that might support this theory. But before we do that, let's look at the official story. So I'm going to quickly read this excerpt from Wikipedia, and it says, the catacombs of Paris are underground ossuaries in Paris, France, which hold the remains of over 6 million people, and a small part of a tunnel network built to consolidate Paris's ancient stone mines. Extending from the south, from Barrière d'Enfer, or the Gate of Hell, former city gate, this ossuary was created as a park to eliminate the city's overflowing cemetery. So I'm not going to read all that because I don't want to bore you guys with the details, but essentially a no longer existing cemetery called the Holy Innocents Cemetery. It got overfilled with dead bodies, spilled onto the streets, and authorities had to act. So they allegedly did so by moving the skeletons to the catacombs day and night. Well, isn't that nice of them? They saw that their dead were being defiled, and they decided to not only move them into a better location, but to completely dismember them and stack them up like Legos. How thoughtful. So this supposed cemetery that no longer exists was allegedly established in the 12th century, and it got closed in 1780. The dead were moved to stone quarries below the streets of Paris, which we now know as the catacombs. Did it really exist? I have no idea, but there's definitely a lot of skeletons down there. And There's really nothing to support this existence other than this one painting that I found. Of course, there's nothing new there. That's a very common theme when looking into our fabricated history. Alright, so here's where things get even weirder. So, Paris's population was supposedly 205,000 people per square mile. To clarify, Paris's entire population was 350,000 people within a small section of 1.69 square miles. You judge for yourself if those numbers are feasible, because the most populated dense city today is the city of Manila in the Philippines, and they are utterly suffocating. And their population is only 107,000 per square mile. Now, those historical numbers are either BS or Paris was being cooped up like chickens. This would match the legends of humanity being a slave race to giants at one point. So I'm gonna believe the maps on this one, because most of history, as we know, is a lie, used to push a certain narrative. And maps seem like they're one of the most valuable sources of the past because they needed to be true in that time in order for their society to work smoothly. And really, that's the whole point of a map. It's to confirm the geography, the location, its accuracy. That begs the question, where did 6 million skeletons really come from? So now that we have the weird population issue out the way, let's talk about this alleged 6 million people who were transferred to these catacombs. And the overwhelming majority were said to be from this, again, non-existent cemetery that we can't seem to prove. Alright, so let's look at the historical population of Paris through its time. Also, keep in mind with these numbers, like, who was really there documenting the population? Like some type of census bureau that would preserve this knowledge for 1,000 years to come. So let's quickly look at these numbers. So the year 29 BC, 29,000 people, that's creative. The year 1000, 20,000 people. Year 1200, 110,000. Then as you see, it slowly goes up, and then by the year 1400, it starts going down because of the Black Plague. Year 1500, it goes down because of the 100 Years' War, the Renaissance, religious and civil wars, yada yada. So then we have this fluctuation. So you can't help but laugh at these numbers because there's still not 6 million people. Even if they had 250,000 people dying in Paris every 30 years for 500 years straight, we'd still only end up with about 4.5 million. So there you have it, guys. As usual, we have what we have and we have what we don't have. And all we're left with is more questions. So the numbers don't add up. The population of Paris doesn't add up. 6 million people in 400 years doesn't add up. Why we only have access to 0.4% of the catacombs for the public is suspect, to say the least. So how do we know it's 6 million people? Who's verifying the numbers? How do we not know it's more? Feel free to voice your opinion because, as you know, the questions and possibilities are endless, but that's expected when we learn to deprogram from our indoctrination. And with that, we learn to not only see history through a different lens, but our reality as well. And what we do know is that they've hidden the truth about previous empires, about who we are, about where we live, previous humanities, cycles, eras, yugas, and much more. So with that said, that concludes our video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Much love.